Hi everyone, it's Jan with What You Make It, and I am here today to show you how I made this tie-dye loopy flower. I had the most fun, totally cinchy, and used things that I already have around the house. I made it out of some muslin, and you all know that this is just a craft supply I keep on hand because you can do so much with it, but I used re-inkers, some muslin, and I did a little sewing, but it kind of took me back to elementary school, and we won't do the math on that, but it was a few years ago, because I remember tie-dyeing t-shirts when I was in like the 5th or 6th grade. That was a fun summer project that we did, and I don't think I've done it since then, but I wanted some way to get kind of some different colors of pinks. I wanted it to be really soft and fun. I was doing this card for one of my nieces, and I wanted it to be very girly and yet really fun. I'll also tell you just another little tip. These hearts that I've stamped in the back here, I actually didn't have a heart that was about that size, but I did have a die that would cut a heart out, and so I used fun foam, cut that out, actually cut out 2 sizes of them. I wasn't sure which one I was going to want to use, and I just used some E6000. This is like the best glue ever, but be careful, it will stick to everything. But it's great for adding heavy embellishments or attaching something to metal. Love that. So I created my own stamp, but if you don't have that, and you do have just like some fun foam pieces that come in, you can get them at Joann's or whatever, put those on a little scrap of something and you have a stamp, because they clean up really, really well. So that's how I made these little heart pieces back here. So let me show you how I did this. I started with a length of muslin, and I just tore it. I actually didn't measure it, so let me get you a quick measurement here. It's about 6 inches. That was about what I was thinking. And one length, which is just the width of what the material was coming off of the bolt, and about 6 inches, because if you're going to make one, you might as well make a couple of them, right? So, and the other thing that you need are some small rubber bands. I also keep a bunch of these. These are those just ponytail rubber bands, and this is a variety pack of them. So I'm just going to put a few of them out here. And if you haven't ever done tie-dye before, this is just the way that we did it in elementary school. You start by gathering up kind of a cone, okay? And then I twisted it. And then you take your rubber band, and you want these rubber bands to be really tight, because what the rubber bands are doing is creating a place that is very hard for the ink or the dye to get to. Now I'm going to show you how I dyed them. I used re-inkers, but I want to tell you now that the re-inkers are not permanent. The ones I used were water-based. There is Ranger makes a product called Color Wash that is permanent, and if you use it in place of your re-inkers, then you could use that for t-shirts or whatever else. But in this particular instance, I'm not planning on making this something that I would wear. If I were going to do that, if I wanted to turn this flower into like a little brooch for a sweater or something, I would want to use permanent ink on it, because just as sure as I go out in the rain, I'm telling you, as sure as I put it on an outfit, it'll rain and I'll have it all over my sweater. Okay, so I did one on kind of facing up this way, and now I'm going to alternate it just to get some different wrinkles in it, and I'm going to pull it up the other way, okay? And I'm twisting that again, and I'm kind of using the bigger rubber bands or the medium-sized rubber bands for these that are down at the bottom. And then I'll go up, use a little bit smaller one for those up here. And I twist the top of it the opposite direction. Okay, so I'm going to start with my chewing gum. I'm going to put quite a few drops in there. And I'm going to go with Hibiscus Burst. Get that. And, you know, we're just going to do this to, that's chili powder. Then we've got Scarlet Jewel. And you just want to mix these to the look that you want. By getting it damp to the touch, it will wick the dye into it. Get the idea. I'm going to finish this up and let it dry overnight, and I'll be back to show you our results. I'm going to make some coordinating wrapping paper, and if you don't have muslin and just want to do this step, this is a really cool thing to do as well. I've taken a piece of tissue paper, white tissue paper, and you want it to not be the coated kind. Some that have that kind of slick surface to them or waxy surface will resist the ink. So my suggestion is just get the cheapest white tissue paper. This is actually recycled from a gift, and fold it down into, you know, just keep folding. I could go one more if I really wanted to. Use my bone folder to get me. This is just going to be, I can either use this as tissue paper in the bag that goes with the card that I'm doing, or I could make a card out of it as well, or just wrap something with it. Okay, so I have my leftover inks here, so I might as well make something that I can use. Maybe just make some collage papers to do as well. So just using what I have, and I'm setting it down in the corner and letting it soak. Okay, and then I'm going to do some pink. Okay, and I'm going to do a little bit of dark here as well. Okay, now I want to let that just sit overnight as well. It's soaked in, but I'm going to let it just sit and dry, and in the morning I can open it up and I can iron it between some newsprint or something like that if I don't like the fold in it. Okay, it's time for the big reveal. Like I said, I let mine dry overnight, but you could use your heat gun and probably get it to speed up a little bit. This is the fun part where you get to see what pattern you make. And I'm not going to use these again. They're really cheap, so I just cut them off. Let's see what we got. Oh, how cool is that? Isn't that awesome? Okay, that's just pretty in and of itself. I would totally use that just like that on a card, wouldn't you? Okay. Very, very, very cool. Love it. Love it, love it, love it. So let me show you some of the other things that I did with the ink while I had my mix together. I went ahead and did some seam binding. I have lots of colors of that now. And back up here. Here is one of the tissue papers that I did. Isn't that pretty? I couldn't wait. I had to look at it last night. Back to making our loopy flowers. We're going to cut this in half, and I'm just going to start it. You notice I'm not measuring. I started about midway and then tear it down the center. Okay? And I'm going to go to the sewing machine, but because I can, and I'm going to use a basting stitch. If you are a seamstress or have a sewing machine, that's just setting your stitch at a very wide length, because we're going to use it to gather this up. So I'm going to go and I'm going to run a stitch down here. But if you don't have a sewing machine and you want to hand sew it, you just take your needle and we're just going to go all the way down the length, going down and up, down and up, down and up, and then you pull your needle through. Now I don't have any thread on here, but then that will give you your basting stitch that you can make your ruffle out of. We're basically making ruffles. Does that make sense? Okay, let me go do that sewing and I'll be right back. I'll get you in here where you can see a little better. So here's my running stitch, or my basting stitch, and now I'm going to take my scissors that I use for sewing. I keep a pair that are just for cutting cloth, and I never cut paper with them. And I'm now going to just cut my loops, and depending on how wide you want them, I'm just going to cut all the way down the length of this. And it's okay that it started gathering a little bit. Just take your time. Just the only thing you want to do is make sure that you don't cut past or cut through your line. Okay, I've got all my little loops cut, and now I'm going to do just a little gathering. And to do that, you take one, and I always like working with the stitch that's on the top. I take one piece of the thread, and I begin to just kind of tug on it, and then you work those gathers on down the length of your, and you gather a little more. And I find that it helps to then, where you have finished pulling it, put your thumb there to kind of keep it taut, and then move it on down, move the gathering on down the length here. Just kind of hold and push. Or I'm going to use one of these gloobers. This is one of the double-sided circles, double-sided tape or sticky that is already cut in a circle. They're by Cosmo Cricket. And I'm just going to use it as my base. So I'm going to peel one side off. I am going to need to use some hot glue though. I found that it, because of all of the gathering and all of that, it does get a little, it covers up the center really quick. So let me see where we are. And I'm just going to come in. We can trim things off, but I want to make sure that I have the gathering inside of the edge of the circle, just because for a card I don't want my flower to be humongo. Okay, so I can get around, really the first circle around, you are going to, at least I did, I covered up most of the glue, but it gives it a really solid base. So I'm just going to use my glue. I'm going to bring this around. You want to be kind of careful. You might want to use a little tool to mush it down. And I want to kind of keep bringing it in tighter and tighter so that the bottom petals are out further than the ones that are inside. There we go. And just pooch it down in there. Okay? And we're going to let that cool just for a minute. Pretty place in it. And I'm not using a pattern. I'm just going to fold it and go. So I just want to, just how we used to make hearts in elementary school. This is really my elementary school relived project right here, isn't it? Making hearts and making tie-dye. So fun. Okay, I'm going to, I'll trim those up later, but to get our center on, I just wanted to put a little heart here in the center. So I'm going to put some hot glue here. Put this right there, a little bit. Then just a touch more. Center. We'll put our little Webster's Pages resin heart down in there. How cute is that? And you know what? That's as hard as it is. Get you a little card front going, put a little greenery behind it, and you have a really, really cute tie-dye loopy flower. I hope this has maybe encouraged you to go back and recreate some of your elementary school art. I hope you'll try making one of these. They're really fun and super, super simple, Simon. And whatever you do, be sure and take some time for creative play, and I'll be back with another project real soon. See you later. Bye.